Well, hello and welcome to what I believe is episode 27 of Tui Snider's Offbeat and Overlooked. This is a streaming show where I interview a wide variety of experts, everything from cemetery symbols, forgotten history, folklore, paranormal, quirky sites, UFOs, cryptids, high strangeness, basically all the offbeat and overlooked people, places, and things that tickle my fancy. And as I always say, I have a very ticklish fancy. Now, there were a bunch of us chit-chatting beforehand, which was nice. It's always nice when people show up early. So thanks, everyone who showed up. We have Ken is here. Howdy, Ken, from Colorado. Let's see, we've got Veronica is here from Tennessee. Francisca in the Netherlands. And I know I'm missing some folks here, but I appreciate you all coming today. Always nice to see you guys. All right. So in case you're new here, I'm Tui Snider. I write books, I give talks, and I do a lot of research. And today's guest is Nathan Isaac. Here, I can make this a little bigger for you. And I will be bringing him in here shortly. Francisca saying, no hat today. Yeah, I got my hair up in these little ponytails because it's so hot and humid while I was running around. So actually, I plan to jump into our little above ground pool and cool off after the show. Because, you know, this is the height of Texas summer and it's pretty hot and humid. Really, the humidity is what kills me out there. But yeah, it is weird for me not to be. I will actually be wearing a hat in the pool, though. That's in lieu of sunscreen. So yeah, and Nathan is actually not quite here yet. So I put a couple things. Anyway, I usually do a few announcements at the beginning, but I added a couple little things for show and tell that apply to today anyway. So we'll just have some fun until he gets here. So for this week's sponsor, I just went into my one of my folders where, you know, when I'm researching one topic, I'm always finding all sorts of unrelated things and getting sidetracked. And I do not know the story behind this. I'm going to have to look it up one of these days. This was from the 1880s, and it is Harry Swarb's pet ram, a pugnacious sheep. It's a little bit of a tongue twister, which was the terror of Lawrenceville and had remarkable butting powers. So I just imagine there was this really rough and tumble sheep who was terrorizing people all around town, maybe keeping them from getting into their houses. I don't really know. So like I said, one of these days, it's in my someday lookup pile. I will dig into this a little more. In the meantime, I want to thank all my wonderful Patreon supporters. That means Bob, Connie, Ian, Scott, Ghost Cat, Jessica, Angel, Anne, Envy, Jay, Ken, Patty, Sarah, Julie, Margaret, Hugh, Mikhail, Naomi, Tim, Pete, Sarah, Rachel, and the other Tui who is no relation to me. Thanks, you guys. You guys are wonderful. And speaking of my wonderful Patreons, one of them is here today, Ken. He sent me this on August 1st, and, you know, I am embarrassed to say I really did not know much of anything about llamas. I was like, llamas? I had to go to Google. I had to look that up. And what I learned was just a little bit. Obviously, I need to learn a bit more. But this is a holiday, both Christian and pagan, kind of like Easter, from what I could tell. One of those things where it was probably got incorporated into Christianity along the way. I'm sure someone out there knows a lot more about llamas than I do. Maybe you guys can catch me up on this. But it's an ancient celebration. It's observed on August 1st, and it marked the beginning of harvest, especially the first wheat crop. And people often celebrate by baking bread. So the etymology of llamas comes from loaf mass, apparently. Now, one reason I'm surprised I never heard about this is I grew up in Washington State, and our house was just right next to a wheat field. So it seems, and this time of year, I always think about the wheat harvest. We'd have the combines going by and giving you red eyes sometimes from the dust. So that is llamas. So I don't know if you guys were familiar with that or not. So another thing I wanted to share, since I figured I have a bit of time to kill since our guest needed a little time for his commute. Yeah, you had never heard about it? Okay, Francisca, I feel a little better. You hadn't heard of it either. So, you know, we learn something new all the time. And I obviously need to learn a little bit more about llamas. And yeah, I will do that. It's always a lot of homework. These shows, I end up having to do homework after them. Here's something really fun that really made my day. I'll make myself a little smaller so you can see it. My friend, one of my readers, I met her through my books, Jan, daughter, and then she pronounces it Gomez, I think. So she goes, she just posted this and tagged me in it on Facebook, and I didn't see it for a while. But it says, today I read a book. Yes, Tui Snider. I read 6 Feet Under Texas that I've had for about a year. I guess it was just about a year ago that I came out with this book. And she goes, a year ago, I couldn't see out of my glasses well enough to be able to read. And my book healed her. Just kidding. That isn't the case. But she's doing better. Today, I read your book without glasses. I don't know. I got to ask her how she did that. Now, to some folks, that's no big deal. To me, it's huge. I have a stack of books I've been wanting to read. Yeah, I wear readers. I wonder how she cured her eyes. I got done with this book, and she started to read Eat, Pray, Love that I've had for quite a while. Have any of you guys read that book? Or 6 Feet Under Texas? I've read them both and enjoyed them both. Of course, I wrote one of them, but you know. I'm so excited to be able to read again. By the way, it's a great book. And then she went on a little bit more. So here's the book she's talking about. Is my book, 6 Feet Under Texas, which has 50 chapters. And it's a bit of a travel guide to different historic cemeteries here in Texas that have interesting stories behind them. So like I discovered the identity of a one-legged tightrope walker that was kind of a cold case in this one town. He fell to his death and he's just buried somewhere. It just says rope walker. But while researching this, I was able to connect some dots and figure out what his name was, a little bit about him. I also have, there's a cemetery here in Texas where there are 2 oil wells, and they build themselves as the richest cemetery in the world because they were making money off of those oil wells, so much so that they were able to make a fancy caretaker shack, things like that. I have a lot of cold cases in here. So if you like mysteries, some of them are unsolved, some eventually get solved. I talk about Karen Silkwood, who was a whistleblower who died from plutonium poisoning under very suspicious circumstances. So, you know, like I said, I've got a lot of interesting things in here. And there are pictures in here as well, which you can't see. I have at least, why can't I show this? You know, StreamYard kind of reverses everything. So you think you're doing one thing, but there I have a lot of, and then at the beginning of each chapter, I show you where in Texas you would go to see the cemetery. So it was a fun book to write. And I'm just thrilled to pieces that it was the first thing that Jan was able to read, since she was not able to read much for a while. All righty, let's see here. Oh yeah, another thing. Okay, do you guys, some of you were here. I know last time, well, not last time, July 1st, that's when I had Dan Shaw on, and he's the Vortex guy, the Vortex detective, and he talked about a lot of magnetic disturbances around the world. And he sent me something that I'm going to show you here in a second, but I see that Francisca did a little digging for us. She says, Lammas is a Christian holiday celebrated in some English-speaking countries in the Northern Hemisphere, also known as Loaf Mass Day. Yeah, and like I said, I grew up in a wheat town. You would think, but it was on the West Coast. I don't know. We didn't celebrate Lammas, but that would have been a neat thing for us to do. All right, thanks for sharing that, Francisca. So anyway, getting back to Dan. So he, maybe some of you guys remember when he was on the show, but he asked me to send him my cemetery symbols because we talked a little bit after the show and he was curious about that. And he sent me this globe called a Earth star globe. And the way see all the points and all the points on it, apparently there's some interesting geologic feature at each of those. So it's really cool globe. I'm a sucker for globes in general. Let's see if I can get this going so you can see like Africa or something there. Or yeah, there you go, South America. And it was a little hard to put together because you have to tape it. I think I'm going to have to strengthen it a little bit. But it was a really nifty thing. So that's the Earth Star globe that he sent me. And here, a little better look at like how it's supposed to look. And it has a little stand. I took it off the little stand. You don't see it there. But it is pretty interesting. Each of the little points has something, you know, interesting going on. Like here's Galapagos fracture and the Society Islands, and Easter Island is just right on one of these, which is kind of neat. I need to spend some time looking at it because Easter Island can be kind of hard to find when you're looking on the globe. So I guess that must be, oops, that's Africa. Wrote it. As I said, I get confused looking through this. Well, anyway, maybe if I just do it without looking and then, looking there. Oh, so this little thing would be Easter Island then. So it's kind of cool. I'm a sucker for globes and maps in general. I think they are just so much fun. Well, Nathan's not here yet, so I'm going to keep vamping a little bit. I wanted to remind you guys, I know a lot of you have already seen this, but I did include it in the show notes. It's a link to that 40-minute long documentary I did for the city of Austin about the symbols on veterans' headstones. And they have really, if you're ever in Austin, they have some gorgeous historic cemeteries. In this film, I just talked about veterans markers, but boy, there's so much more. As we were going along, my head was whipping around because I was seeing all sorts of interesting symbols. They have a lot of unique ones. That would be a really good one if you're interested in cemetery symbols. I would say definitely take some time going to Oakwood Cemetery in Austin, Texas. And how am I doing? Well, I've got a little more I'm still waiting here. Today's guest is going to be Nathan Isaac. And that's one reason I had the globe that I was just telling you about. I thought that was a good thing to show today because he talks about some of the anomalous geography in Kentucky. So we will be getting into that shortly. But I also want to let you know that this is going to be my only show for August because I am going to be traveling for a couple of weeks. Now, I might do some impromptu YouTube lives along the way. And I hope that I have the bandwidth to do that. So my husband and I are going to be going to West Texas. And if any of you have ever been to West Texas, then you got to know that it can be, the Wi-Fi can be very non-existent there. If Wade shows up, I'm sure he could second that opinion. Oh, enjoyed the video, especially the tree type marker. Yeah, there were a lot of really interesting markers there. I wanted to run around, but they were like, okay, go to this one next, go to this one next. And they had it all planned out. It was so big. I mean, we spent 9 hours just running from one market to the other, and we had lunch. So I'll say 8 hours of running from one market to the other. And there was still so much that we didn't get to see and talk about. But so as I mentioned earlier this year, it was back in April, was the 10th wedding anniversary for my husband and I. And so as a gift for me, he made this really wonderful tiki hut in our backyard. And as you know, you might be able to tell that I used to watch a lot of Gilligan's Island as a kid. And maybe it shows, but he made this really cool tiki hut. And so I was like, well, what can I make for him? He's so talented. He's quite the builder. I couldn't think of what I could do for him for a gift. And so what I ended up doing was I planned a road trip. And my husband, he used to work at the Fort Worth Planetarium, among other things. We love to go stargazing. And this month, August, I don't know, do any of you guys ever go stargazing, or can you see the stars where you're at? What's the light pollution like where you live? I'm just curious. I ask because West Texas is a really great place to go. It's very dark and you can really see the Milky Way and the stars. So what I did was I planned a special trip, and we will be leaving. We got our house sitter all set up, and all this all worked out. And we're going to be driving to some very dark places and doing some stargazing. We're going to see the Perseid meteor shower. And then we're going to go down to Marfa, Texas. And I don't know if any of you guys, have you ever been to Marfa, Texas? Here, I'll make it a little so you can see it a little bit bigger. This is just one picture. They have down in Marfa, they have these mystery lights that people see. And so that's one of the things we're going to see on our little road trip. Oh, there's Wade. Hi, Wade. How are you doing? I'm just telling everyone that this is going to be my only official show during August because I'm going to be traveling for a couple of weeks. Hopefully I can scrape up enough Wi-Fi to do a few impromptu shows for you guys because my husband and I are taking a little road trip to deep West Texas to do some stargazing. And let me see if that's a message from, nope, okay. I'm just waiting. Also, I'm waiting because our guest hasn't quite shown up yet. He did say he was going to be maybe 15 minutes late, and that's right about where we're going. So, and so let's see. Highway, fair to Midland. Yeah, so I was wondering if anyone had seen the Marfa lights before. I figured if anybody had, maybe you had, Wade.
Do I have to sell them?
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to sell them.
And my husband's talking on the phone upstairs. I hope you guys can't hear him. It's kind of throwing me off a little bit. Well, our guest is not quite here. Let me just check one thing and make sure they're not having an issue getting in. It looks like he's probably just pulling in any second. So. Yeah, so we're going to see the, oh, you haven't? You've not seen them? Oh, wow, I'm shocked to be, you're such a traveler. I figured you've been, well, I don't know. I guess just because I'm going down there doesn't guarantee that I will see the Marfa mystery lights or not. A lot of people claim that they are just headlights in the distance, but that doesn't account for the fact that they have been seen for centuries. Oh, Ken says stargazing is good here, but we are at 9,200 feet in the Rockies. Yeah. Wow. Well, I bet you'll be able to enjoy the Perseid meteor shower coming up. I'm very excited about this. And over in the Netherlands, great to see the stars, no light pollution, only one lighthouse. Oh, good. Man, that's great that you have got good. It's always good to have access to some place if you like the stars without so much light pollution. Up at my parents' place up in Washington State, this time of year, actually, we see, this is North Washington State, it's above Seattle. It's like right in between Seattle and Canada. We actually see the northern lights up there, which is pretty darn exciting. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen the northern lights before, but my plan is to see lots of celestial goodies on our trip. We're also going to go see Carlsbad Caverns. I don't know if any of you guys have been there or not. So, oh yeah, since we're waiting for the guest, yes, I know I'm twiddling my thumbs. He should be in here any second. And when he comes in, I'm going to bring him on. I guess I think, do I have any things for more? Oh, here, Wayside wants to know if anyone has seen the show Yellowstone. I have not. I have been to Yellowstone, but I have not seen this show. What kind of show is it? It is possible to see in the Netherlands. Oh, have you seen the Northern Lights in the Netherlands? You know, my parents have seen them as far south as New Mexico once. So, you know, it just, I guess, depends on the ionosphere and if it's being tickled enough to put out enough photons or something. Obviously, I don't understand it very well, as you can tell. Oh, Wade is saying that Yellowstone is very well done, Montana. Is it historic? Like, is it sort of a Wild West frontier era time in Yellowstone? I'm just going to have to write it down and look later. I always like to take notes during the show because sometimes there's things I want to look up later. Yellowstone show. And I'm always looking for a good show. Yellowstone is about a ranch and the family, what it takes to keep it going. Oh, all right. It reminds me a little bit of the movie Giant, which I just saw, that came out in the 1950s. and it starred Elizabeth Taylor and James Dean. It was James Dean's last film, and they filmed it down in Marfa, Texas. And apparently James Dean was really into the Marfa lights. He even got a telescope while he was down there, and he looked at them. And then unfortunately he died behind the wheel. So, but the Giant is about a ranching family and their attitudes. And then they become an oil family, and it's sort of like a Texas history lesson for that part of town of the States. Yeah, we got to keep the synchronicities going. And our guest tonight, Nathan, has a whole lot of synchronicities going. I should ask you guys, have you guys seen Hellier? This is a TV show that you can actually see here on YouTube. And I'd heard of it. I knew it was some sort of paranormal show, but I just didn't watch it. And what made me watch it was our guest, because our guest, Nathan Isaac, I heard him interviewed on Project Archivist, which I have the links to below. I love Rojan's show. I've been on it twice, but I just love Rojan's style of interviewing. He's really nice. And I always say I saw podcasts. I heard the podcast with Nathan on it, and he had a bunch of synchronicities that led him to be on the second season of Hellier. I mean, it's just some crazy stuff. I hope we can get into this. Oh, and now Veronica is saying, that's where I remember hearing about Marfa, Giant. Ah, all right. Yeah. And in case you guys didn't know, Marfa is just Russian word for Martha. Someone who was going through town there a long time ago, the wife was reading like Dostoevsky or something, and one of the characters, I think, was Marfa. And so that's why it's called Marfa. What did you spell? Someone spelled something wrong. I missed it. I'm not proofreading. Well, let me just double check over here. I'll leave this up. Well, I don't see him yet. I'm sure he's going to be pulling in any moment. I thought I had enough stuff to keep vamping. Well, let's see what else. Oh, hey, you know what I'm going to say? If you guys haven't liked and subscribed, please do. That's always makes me feel good. And like I said, so for the next couple of weeks, I am going to be traveling, and I will do my best to do some little videos here and there. Well, I don't know if I'll be able to post it while I am traveling or how that's going to go. Oh, yeah, Jared. So, yeah, it says Jared, but that's actually Veronica, just so you know, Wayside. Just so you know, Wade. All right. Well, I'm just vamping now because I'm dying to jump into our show. What we're going to be getting into here is the Penny Royal podcast. So if any of you are podcast aficionados and you like the stuff I cover in this show, you are going to really enjoy the Penny Royal podcast. So make sure you, I do have, as always, show links so you can find it, the Penny Royal. And that should be, I don't know, I think you guys will really enjoy it. I don't want to get into it too much. We aren't going to be able to, it's 8 episodes long, and there's another season coming. Even as much as we can talk about it today, it's such a convoluted, complicated story that don't worry about spoilers. The whole thing, you're just going to want to listen to it probably more than once. Now we've got Kenneth. Northern Lights viewing is not great right now, a bit smoky. Oh, yeah, I bet. Some of my friends up north have been posting some rather smoky sunset photos. Oh, here comes Nathan. I hear him coming into the show. All right, so I am just going to start introducing him so that I can go right into it. So Nathan Paul Isaac, he is a writer, filmmaker. He's also a music producer. And he grew up in Kentucky and has been researching the folklore, the mystery, the high strangeness of the bluegrass state for over 2 decades now. Nathan is also the creator and host of the Penny Royal podcast, which you can see right there. I got that right up there. Here, I should have his little bio thing. So, well, here we go. But he created that podcast, and the Penny Royal podcast and all the weirdness surrounding it, that is going to be the focus of our discussion today. However, as always, you guys feel free to ask him questions, and I will keep an eye on the chat, and I will bring in Nathan right now without any further ado, and we'll just take it from there. I'm going to add him to the stream, see what happens. Howdy, Nathan. Oh, it looks like you're, what happened? Unmute mic. Can't, oh, their mic isn't connected. Can't unmute your guest. Their mic isn't connected. So, all right, that's fine. He's going to do an interpretive dance for us. It's going to be like nothing you've seen. It'll all work out. Here, I'll just put this up so we can look at the... Oh, here's Kenneth asking, where do you live, if you don't mind sharing? Well, I know he lives up in Colorado. That's as much as I'll share. He sent me a really great picture of a moose that kind of blew my mind because I did not know that moose went that far down into the States. We're just going to keep going. Here in Wisconsin. Yeah. Who else? Let's get into something too. Filler. I know I've been doing a lot of filler. I vamped for a while, but it worked. You guys were so nice. Gilpin County. Well, we're almost there. Just for some reason, StreamYard's being a little wonky with us, but we will shortly, before you know it, we will have our guest in here. All right. Oh, he's got to restart his computer. Okie dokie. See you in a second. So close, but so far. All right. He will be back. And he just has to restart his computer. It's being, well, hey, glitchy woman, you can't blame me this time. Glitches happen, don't they? Yeah, oh, you did. You said glitchy woman. I didn't even see that. Hey, I'm not taking credit on this one. I was more like the vampy woman today. I'm just like twiddle, twiddle, twiddle. Usually I feel like my intros go too long, but today I was just like, uh-oh. There actually, there have been a few times that the guests have showed up late, and I'm just sort of doing the filler, trying not to sound like filler, but today it went a little longer. Nathan's probably having one of those days. But this is going to be worth it, you guys. He's really interesting, and I do invite you guys to check out the Penny Royal podcast. Like I say, it has got the links below. Let me see what I have for banners. Yeah, you can just you can open this in another, pennyroyalpodcast.com to hear his show. And hopefully I don't know how long it takes his computer to reboot. Of course, it seems like a lot longer, doesn't it? Here, I know, cats. We could look at the cat for a second. It took her a lot. Usually she's over here nearly every show, but today she is down. She is down on the couch over here. If I can think, I don't know if you guys can see her. I'm trying to show you the cat. There she is with my notebook and stuff. So there. Yeah, the good part is that she's settled because sometimes during this show she walks. I have the kind of ergonomic setup here with my keyboard on my lap, and as you know, sometimes she walks across it. Veronica, I rewatched the Veteran Memorial Monument Cemetery video you did, and it's so wonderful. They did a good job editing that. I'm like, wow, professionals. Whoo-wee, it makes a difference. I have so much appreciation for that because just my little videos that I put up on this channel about, Oswald or whoever else, they take me a long time. And I'm not. Oh, hey, Debbie's here. Woohoo! Hi, Debbie. Nathan had to restart his computer, so he will be with us shortly. So we've just been kind of mixing and mingling. We were talking about the show Yellowstone, which comes highly recommended from Wade. I was telling everyone, and I'll tell you, Debbie, this is my only official show for August. We're going to be traveling West Texas. We're going to see the Marfalites, hopefully, and do a lot of stargazing. So I'm really excited about that. But right now, I'm bringing Nathan back in. If I click the right button, I think I did it.
Can
Are
you
you
hear me
there?
now? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yay!
Oh man,
Yay!
I would have been on here 15 minutes earlier. I tried to get fancy with my interface,
Oh,
and then I was like,
that.
"Well, I've done something wrong." So I
Aha. Well,
apologize.
oh, no worries. These guys are friendly. It's a friendly bunch. They were just their nickname for me is Glitchy Woman because sometimes I do really dumb things like, I don't know, have a post-it note over the camera or something. It takes me a while to figure out what's going on. So, but this is good because Deborah was fashionably late. Debbie from Canada, cool. Sorry, I'm late. Phone call. See, it all worked out. She
Yeah.
had to hear this show. All right. Well, now let's see. I've been vamping for a little while. I was even showing him the cat, like, oh, look at the cat. So, yeah, but we are here to talk about your wonderful podcast. And I have to tell, I was telling everybody earlier that the only reason I ended up watching Hellier was because I found out that you were on it, and I was like, oh yeah, kind of. I was aware of Hellier in the background, but I got I heard you on Project Archivist with Rojan, and that interview just got me hooked on all the weirdness that is, the magic and mystery of place that you do in the Pennyroyal. And I don't know, maybe you could just kind of give. I know some people here. I was asking them. Some people here have not heard your podcast yet, and I personally, okay, like I said, I'm addicted to it now. I look for all the, we're really into it. But I'm curious, could you tell us a little bit about it and also explain the wonderful tagline, the magic and mystery of place?
Yeah, totally. And also, thanks for getting so into the podcast.
It's addicted.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a labor of love for the past, I guess really 3 or 4 years. I've been researching the town of Somerset and this whole area that is the Pennyroyal, and I'll explain what that is. But really, when I'm not from Pulaski County or from Somerset, but my wife is, and so we moved down here, I guess about 10 years ago. And once we moved down here, I'm from a small town, but I really wanted to kind of I don't know, see if there was anything interesting here, because I lived in Lexington, Kentucky. If anyone's familiar with that, that's bourbon and horses, and it's a pretty big
I got
city.
a friend up there actually.
Yeah, I love Lexington, and it's very cosmopolitan,
Oh, okay.
But so moving back to a small town was kind of like, I can't get Indian food now,
Oh yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
But I thought, what other things are there that we can find here? And obviously, I've sort of an obsession and with high strangeness and collecting stories about high strangeness. And so when we moved down here, I started really digging into stories about the place and the history of Somerset. And that's when I started to find all this really weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to see that there was this relationship between the people that lived here and this place. And so the magic and mystery of place, sort of the guiding, theme behind the whole project was understanding how people affect a place and how the place affects those people.
I love that whole idea. I think that is really, really neat.
And that's still what's guiding it in the second season that we're working on as well.
Oh yeah,
we've just found so much stuff out. It's one of those incredible things where you can't believe, as you start to dig into it, it's like, I can't believe we're finding all of this stuff. Even in the last month, we found a ton of new stuff that's going to go into the second season. But yeah, I mean, that's really been the thing, is understanding the magic and mystery of place. And I really wanted with the first season to hopefully inspire people to look at the place they live in and realize that they can find magic there too. And that wherever you are, it's an interesting place.
And that's like my motto as a travel writer. I always even home is a travel destination is what I say, because people think if you are a travel writer that you have to go 2 time zones away before you can write about it. I'm like, I just write about where I happen to live. It's a lot cheaper commute, and plus people want that. If you're there, you can dig in more. I don't know. So I love that. That's what you did. You really dug in.
Yeah. And that's the thing, the reason I prefaced this by saying I was moving down here from Lexington I think all of us at some point are guilty of thinking that, man, this place I live in is so boring.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so when you realize, that's not true. If you take the time to look, you're going to find something amazing. And artist Dan Dutton, who
Oh, he's
features,
fascinating.
totally fascinating individual, great friend of mine. But he told me, when we were talking about this, and this has become a part of the work we've been doing together, that when you start looking at a place, it becomes interesting. It unfolds to you, right?
Yeah.
Because you're looking at it, and I think that's very true. And I know anyone, I dare anyone to tell us that if they really look at the place they live in, that they can't find anything interesting about it.
No, I mean, that's a lot of my, I guess what excites me about it is because I call my show Offbeat and Overlooked, and I just think that there's so many things that we overlook no matter where you live. And I've lived some neat places, lived in Italy and Belgium and stuff. Now I'm in a little town in Texas, but there's just things everywhere that people are just going right by. What is that statue all about? Why is that there? Why has this place got this funky name? I mean, I think bored people are boring people because boredom kind of begets boredom. But once you start expressing interest toward everything, and I love that that's what you really encourage with people, like, look at your own place too. So yeah, you're preaching to the choir. But I wanted to too, I love, this is one thing that sent me down a rabbit hole, because pennyroyal, my association with pennyroyal and stuff, like, okay, so here, I'm just going to bring this up because you say you're in the pennyroyal plateau, right?
Yep.
And so I tried to find it. And of course, what they call the Mississippi Plateau on here is actually the pennyroyal plateau. Because I was trying to really wrap my head around where that was.
Yeah. And, just like the map shows. So Pulaski County is really right there in the center of Kentucky.
Kind of like right around here-ish.
Well, no, it's right where the I is on Mississippi.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So that right there is Pulaski County. And then everything east of that is really the beginning of the Appalachian Mountains, right?
Okay.
Which is the Cumberland Plateau. I'm from a little place that's a little bit further east there. But yeah, so the Pennyroyal Plateau stretches, from the bluegrass to the north. It has the Appalachian Mountains to the east, and then west, as you can see, all the way to western Kentucky. It also covers, one of the biggest parts is Hopkinsville, and where Edgar Casey's from, where the Hopkinsville Goblins are, where that all happened, which I think is interesting to draw a correlation between Casey and
the Edgar Casey thing. I didn't realize that. I saw that recently. Yeah, I think that's really neat.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't realize that Casey was one of the first people to talk about aliens, and this was in like the early 30s, before there were, I think
before the whole Kenneth Arnold, and then all the big surge after that with all the
and he was talking about Arcturians and fifth dimensional beings,
which rather ahead of its time.
Very much so. And the weird thing too is that the Arcturians are from the Herdsman constellation, and and they were part of the Brotherhood of All.
Booties.
Right, the Brotherhood of Pan, right? Which I think is weird. It's not something that he drew a direct correlation to, but it's definitely an unmistakable synchronicity, I think.
Yeah, I love that.
But yeah, so this region here is mostly like with what they call karst. So there's a lot of caves, sinkholes. And then a lot of people will be familiar with Mammoth Cave. Oh yeah,
I got a picture of that, but I want to get back to Pennyroyal too in a minute. Yeah, I swiped a picture from the visitor, the CVB brochure.
Which, the Mammoth Cave is the largest cave system in the world. Also beneath us here in Pulaski County is the 14th largest in North America. It's the Sloan's Valley Cave System, and that's right here where all this weirdness has been happening. But but the Mammoth Cave is definitely in the area of where the Hopkinsville got. It's that Western Kentucky area.
Oh, okay.
And Mammoth Cave, stretches really beneath a lot of Kentucky. And there's some ideas that Eastern Kentucky and Mammoth Cave sort of wind together because, they haven't mapped all of it out yet. So
yeah, well, it's mammoth. But yeah, so that whole thing about the pennyroyal, one thing I learned from your podcast, because, okay, here's what pennyroyal, I didn't know what it even looked like. And so, apparently it's in the mint family, but I didn't realize how toxic it was or what its other uses were.
Right. It's famous for the Nirvana song, Pennyroyal Tea, right?
That was it. I heard, and I had to re-listen to that, and kind of now the lyrics take on a different tone. I mean, I don't know that I really paid too much attention to the lyrics, but I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So the song is about abortion because, or at least is referencing it because pennyroyal for thousands of years is one of, I think, 3 plants that has natural abortive properties. So people have used it for thousands of years.
Here's a picture of someone like, from that. I was like, what? Here, drink your tea. And then I was reading like it was really hard to dose because just the amount to have the abortive qualities and just a tinge more and you're both dead. It's just like
yeah, it can kill you. So a strange thing that I found out about pennyroyal, which is again another one of these weird synchronicities. Sirius, the star Sirius,
the dog star.
Yeah, the dog star, which right now we're in the dog days.
Yeah, the dog days. Woohoo!
It comes into play heavily in the pennyroyal story because of, and I won't go into this because it's too much of another story, but because of a strange individual named James Shelby Downard Jr., which some people may be familiar with. He wrote an essay called King Kill 33 about the JFK assassination. But he's like an arch conspiracy theorist. He's a very controversial character. He may not have existed. He may have existed. But he was recorded on the Sirius Rising tapes. But anyway, there's a lot of elements of Sirius that play into what's happening here. And when you look at the magical correspondences of Sirius, I think I'm quoting this correctly, you find out that the plant that corresponds with it is pennyroyal.
Really?
And that the stone that corresponds with it is
quartz.
Yeah.
I was just because I know there's a bunch of quartz under there.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. I know there's so many weird correlations. In fact, I had such a hard time putting together a list of questions for this show because I've listened to the podcast like twice. I've listened to a bunch of interviews with you and I'm like, this will be great. I'll have them on. I'll ask all the questions I want to ask. But then I thought, okay, I have to lay it out so that my viewers who haven't seen it yet, it makes some sense to them. And there's so much more. There's no way you can even do a spoiler on this because it's so common. The thing about it is all the questions I had for you, like it isn't like here's the beginning, here's the middle, here's the end. Every little piece of info in your pennyroyal thing, it spirals out into something else. And I've done a lot of research before, and I know that's kind of normal. But with this project, it's like crazy spiraling everywhere. I don't know how it must have been really hard to come up with the narrative that you did. You did a really good job on that, but I'm saying it was hard for me to know what to ask you because I knew that, if I ask this though, I better tell them, make sure they heard this first. And then, how do I ask that? And then, so yeah.
I know that's what, like, if I bring up James Shelby Downard, it's like, it would take me like 30 minutes to.
I know, you could just do a show on just that whole one thing. I don't know. I was like, should I bring him up? I'm like, who should I bring up? Because your podcast is full of so many interesting characters. I'm just going to jump around now. Like one of my favorites, I guess, I just got to bring it up. I want to talk about the Kentucky meat shower, but this guy, he's known as Mr. X. This guy, if I could bring him up, let's see. So I was looking him up. I fell down a rabbit hole looking him up because you can take it away. But one thing I just wanted to point out was on the day he died, down in Boca Raton, they're describing him as a financial wizard who twice built financial empires and saw both collapse. And then meanwhile, up in New York, they're like, he was an ex-con, a con man, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, gee, a little bit of a controversial figure, shall we say?
Yeah, this is definitely, you know, the the whole thing itself was, as we got deeper into to researching all this stuff and finding out all these threads, finding the Gaterma stuff was really one of those things where I was like, I mean, something really is happening here, you know, because, and I won't go into the whole thing with Pamela. There's some cult stuff, you know, but really she's the one that you know, and I'll mention Hellier too in a minute, but when I talked to Greg Newkirk and told him some of the stories, and he told us why they were in town and what had happened, that's when we went back to Pamela, who said that there was this international cult coming to Somerset, Kentucky, right? And we were like, where's that happening at? And she said, the Mount Victory coal mine. And when you Google the Mount Victory coal mine, one of the first things that pops up is Alexander Gaterma, who the New York Times refers to as Mr. X, because no one knows where the guy came from, what his true history is, anything like that. And he comes into the United States in 1951, and within 6 months is one of the richest men in America. By 1959, he commits the largest stock fraud in U.S. history, which is crazy, right? And then he's implicated in the JFK assassination. He tries to, which is he's mentioned the gemstone file, which if anyone's familiar with that work, he assisted in the overthrow of the Dominican Republic. You know, he was involved with all these mobsters. He ended up being one of the owners of the Desert Inn, which was one of the first places that Frank Sinatra sang in, Las Vegas. And they had a penthouse upstairs where they would have these atomic cocktails, and they would watch the nuclear bombs being tested.
Can you imagine? That's just crazy. That is right. I know, that's nuts. Well, and the whole thing about like how even the New York Times couldn't dig down to figure out who he was, and how I liked how you at one point you discussed his accent, how because he could have been German, because apparently if you are a native German speaker, you can then pass as an English speaker better. You know, some languages, if it's your first language, you can come into America and people fake your heritage a little better than others. Anyway, I found that whole part really interesting. Like, who is this guy really? I mean, and the whole Radio Shack possibility, like him getting,
Yeah, he was apprehended in Hawaii, in Honolulu, working at a radio repair station during World War II, and was detained by the OSS for 2 weeks, and then they released him to the Japanese for a prison camp. He says he was Russian, but a number of researchers, and he is a very obscure person until we've dug him up, right? But a lot of researchers the few people that have researched him that I found, they believe that he actually came over to the United States and was a German intelligence agent and was part of the Galen organization. Because a lot of people know about Project Paperclip, but they don't know about the Galen organization that brought not scientists, but these spies in to work for the U.S. And all the things that he did, he was involved with the mob. There were so many things that he did where he crossed the mob that they would have killed him, but they didn't.
Yeah, that was weird too, and you go into that a bit. And here, like I'm looking in this article, they say that he's a Siberian on here. I mean, obviously, you've got to, they're just kind of.
Yeah. And honestly, I did a FOIA request.
That's one thing I want to say. I love how deep you dive. You don't just hit up Google and go to a couple things and say you're done researching. I mean, you do actually Freedom of Information Act stuff, which I've never done before. Maybe you can even talk about what that's like.
Oh man! So, well, let me say this really quick about him.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm just jumping.
And then I'll tell you about
okay.
But so I ended up getting. I bought limited edition Life magazine articles that were about him. I found collectors. I have a massive amount of original documents about the guy, and bought pictures of him from the Associated Press, which were the original photos, right? But the FOIA request that I got, I didn't think I was going to receive anything, and then I got 1,662 pages of documents just about Alexander Guterma from the FBI.
So, in what sort of format? Is it like a huge PDF, or
Yeah, they're PDFs and they're
and then
scans.
redacted a bit?
They're redacted heavily because he was involved in a lot of and
Oh,
we're really only digging in. You know, this was
Yeah.
only a few months ago that I even got this, so we're still digging into it. But I love muck rock, and I encourage anybody that's interested in getting information. You know, when I filed the FOIA request, I thought nothing will happen. It says they have to respond within, I think, 40 days, and
okay.
and they did. They absolutely
really?
sent this to me, and I'm the only person that has ever asked for documents about this guy, right?
Oh, wow.
And so they sent them to me.
Mhm.
And now, since then, I've filed FOIA requests, and you can join Muckrock, which they automate the whole process. Right?
Oh, okay.
Muckrock.com.
Oh, that's good. I'm write that down.
So if you use that, they provide templates. You just
Nice.
you can type in CIA, FBI, and they automatically send it all to you for you.
Wow.
To these agencies. I think it's like $20 a month, and I can do 3 FOIA requests. But the more you pay, the more you can file. You know.
Yeah. So get it lined up and just do a big old blast. I
Yeah,
think you know.
And we just found a new person who is even more sort of famous in a conspiracy sense than Guterma here in Pulaski County. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a major part of the second season where I was like, how in the world did we not find this before the first season? But now that we found it, how many things exist here that we haven't found yet if this also existed, you know? And so I filed FOIA requests with the CIA and with the FBI on this particular individual, and we'll see what happens. But
oh man, and you also do data mining, which tell me about that. I mean, because I do everything. I draw connections. I just take notes and try to find the connections myself. But you're actually like crunching. How do you do that? It's magic.
So Darian West, who's my creative partner and business partner on tons of stuff. We've been designing apps for a number of years. He does most of the coding and he does the back end. I do the front end sort of design of everything. And we've worked for a number of big companies in the US. We've designed everything from sober dating apps to data mining all the VIN numbers in America for catalytic converters. Yeah. So, you know, he is brilliant in writing these programs that are able to parse large amounts of data.
Wow, yeah.
And there are so many documents, newspaper articles, FBI documents, just text that we've acquired while, you know, digging into this mystery that he's been able to feed it into
does he scan them in somehow? I'm just trying to figure out.
And it uses OCR.
Okay. So, all right. Wow.
So it turns it into text.
Yeah.
And then just puts it into a pool and then finds the connections between everything. It's a software that he developed himself called Nautilus. And so
I heard you mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes all the names of people, all the places, all the locations, and it can even tell you that if certain people were in the same area at the same time that you might have missed. You know,
for sure.
You might not see these correlations otherwise. You know?
Wow. Oh, wow. That just seems so fun. Oh man, it sounds addicted. I mean, I already get addicted sometimes. I'm sure you can relate. Research can be very addicting. But man, with having the that, like, to be able to catch correlations for you, man, that sounds really exciting. Is that something like, have you sold that to people? I bet people who are like really into the JFK thing would want to buy it from you.
Not yet. I mean, we use it definitely for this research, and then we have our Patreon, which is the Liminal Lodge.
Yes. Yes.
And so we're rolling that out for them to be able to help us put information in, parse information out. He's got it to the point too with VR where, and it's really cool, where you can actually interact with the data.
Really? Ooh, it's just like a sci-fi thing, but they're always like looking at. I always kind of, when I see those in sci-fi movies, I'm like, oh, if only I could be going through all the data. No, this is it. Yeah, swipe up, swipe down. Oh, how cool.
It's not quite as sophisticated, but but you can be in there with it, and you can see these planetary, like the size of the thing is based on
okay.
how much.
Kind of like a word cloud. Like I've seen word clouds
Yes.
before. So maybe you could see like Guterma's taking up this much,
Yes.
and then you can see like
All this stuff.
Somerset, and then you can kind of see, oh, okay, I've seen some things like that. Sounds.
And then you can click
really
on it
fun.
with your hand, and then
Oh,
it will
neat.
take you to articles and things.
Oh
It's
my gosh.
fantastic. Eventually, we
Wow.
are going to make it available for people to use for other stuff, but right
Oh
now,
my.
it's we're just using it to try to get through all this data that we found.
Yeah. No, that is too fun. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what to ask now. Oh, I know. Maybe you can tell us, because I love all the synchronicities in your show. Maybe if you want. I mean, of course, go off any way you want. But maybe you could tell us. I know some people here have seen Hellier, and maybe you could tell us some of the synchronicities that led to you being on the show, and how you guys didn't even know that you both were researching this. And
Yeah, I mean that was
that was so bizarre.
It was really bizarre. I mean, so I'd been digging into Somerset. And all of there are all these rumors of cults.
Yeah, which I mean, kind of are everywhere, especially since the Satanic Panic, and so now it's sort of like an eye roller, like, oh yeah, cults, oh witches, but
And a lot of it too, I do chalk up to the Satanic Panic. However, some of it's so weird, especially when when Pamela said the whole thing about Mount Victory coal mine and is telling me that there's an international cult there, and then we find out that Guterma, a possible ex-Nazi, bought this mine from Spiro Agnew, Vice President Spiro Agnew, of all things, right? And I was like,
how bizarre.
What is this, right? So is it possible she's telling the truth,
Yeah.
But so, I've been researching a lot of the paranormal stuff too, a lot of the high strangeness, UFO sightings, all that. And then the crime that was here. And then Kyle Cadell, who runs the Paranormal Museum here in which how many towns have a paranormal museum?
I know, you got this. It's not a very big town, and that you've got the International Paranormal Museum. Yep.
Right. So he had met Greg and Dana at some conventions, and so whenever they were shooting Hellier 2, and we didn't know they were, they just when they were coming through town, they contacted him and wanted, do an interview. They said, "Do you know someone else that knows anything about the town?" And he said, "Hey, you should talk to Nathan. He's been doing research for the last few years about the place." So we met up in our studio, and I told Greg all the stuff about the cult, and then he, was like, "That's this woman contacted us from here.
That's crazy.
This cult, So at that point, I had written off that there was a cult. He tells me that, and I'm like, "Is it possible that there really is something going on?" And that was sort of the end of it with them until the show came out, right? And I've been working on a number of projects with artist Dan Dutton. And Dan had this experience in Elkhorn City, which is eastern Kentucky, the farthest part of eastern Kentucky. So he was in eastern Kentucky. At Elkhorn City, he had this really strange experience where he encountered the archetype of Pan. Right?
And there's a whole episode on it, so everyone, you've got to listen to that. I love that episode. It's such a crazy.
One of my favorites, and definitely it was one of those things where we had been at his house, we've been having dinner, my wife and I, and we were working on another project, and I brought up fairies and fae and Pan, and then he read us some modern fairy stories out of it was this beautiful day, and then he was like, "I've got a story for you," and then he told me this, and I was like, "Dan, we've got to make this into a documentary," because I do a lot of film work too, right? And so we started working on this film and documenting and trying to tell the story of this encounter he had in Elkhorn City with this guy named Johnny. And all this weird stuff that happens. So it's the 4th episode of the first season. But whenever Hellier finally came out, the 2nd season, Dan's major work is a 4-part opera series that took 10 years to finish. That was called The Secret Commonwealth. So the 8th episode of Hellier, that I appear in, is The Secret Commonwealth, right?
Yeah, that's like, and
which was
they
weird.
didn't know anything about Dutton at this point, right?
Yeah. And so then a large part of the 2nd season of Hellier involves Jim Brandon, but really William Grimstead's who was a controversial figure, to say
Yeah.
the least.
Yeah, unfortunately, but
His book, The Rebirth of Pan, right? And
yeah.
so Pan figures heavily into the second season. And then, the film that Dana and I are working on, where it's called The Fawn. It's about his opera about
Yeah.
Pan. I wanted, to restage it. That was the main part of the project, was restaging it where this happened in Breaks Interstate Park in Elkhorn City, to see if by restaging the opera we could invoke Pan, right?
Yeah.
In the same way. So then when Hellier came out, here they are in the final episode, which is the Night of Pan. In Somerset, they're doing a ritual to invoke Pan. And so I texted Greg.
It's just so interwoven.
It's so crazy.
And not intentional. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I texted Greg and I was like, dude, I just watched. It was like the day that it came out. It was like November the 20th, 29th. And I texted him and I said, dude, Dan Dutton. And he didn't know that I was working on this project with Dan. So I said, I'm working on this film with Dan. And we go to Elkhorn City to invoke Pan. And you came to Somerset. And he texted me back and he was like, I'm looking at Dan Dutton on my evidence wall right now.
Yeah,
you didn't know how to fit him into the second season,
Wow.
And a lot of people don't realize too that Hellier is a suburb of Elkhorn City.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So it's like we went to Elkhorn City to do an invocation to Pan, and they came from Elkhorn City, Hellier, to Somerset, and it was a weird, just like that made me think definitely something is happening here.
Yeah. You guys are you think it's all your own idea or something, you feel steered or something at that point, if you know what I mean. It's just like, what?
And there's weird, just all of this, it's weird reverberations, right? It's as if there's something that we're all interacting with, but I mean, that's the point of, the project really is understanding how it is that these things happen, because it seems so magical. And I think it is magical,
Well, and it's made me a lot more cognizant of all that. I wrote a book about haunted places, like a little travel guide. Paranormal Texas tells you where to go, places that were haunted. But I kept coming across all these goatmen things, and I just did not know what to do with them. So I stuck all the goatmen stuff in another folder going, what? Goatmen? What is going on? And so now I'm listening to Penny Royal. I'm like, maybe I need to go back into my Goatman file and see, because I can think of like 3 or 4 just right around me. Like, what is the deal? And I don't know.
But see, there are a lot of satyr sightings,
Yeah.
Definitely in Kentucky. Growing up in Eastern Kentucky, there were tons of sightings of a half man, half goat with horns.
I didn't know how prevalent that was.
It's really prevalent, but where I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, where it's heavily Southern Baptist, Free Will Baptist, it was the devil. It wasn't Pan, it wasn't
true. Yeah, that's true. He's been pretty vilified.
Right?
Poor guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, see, this is, but it's strange even thinking of that how many stories I heard growing up where people encountered satyr-like creatures.
Yeah.
More so than Bigfoot. There are more satyr encounters in Eastern Kentucky than Bigfoot encounters.
Satyrs are the new black. Yeah, they're coming up.
Right.
I know that is something, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had I felt bad. And like, why did but I was like, I don't know what to make of this. And so I just kept throwing them aside. And, I always into another folder. I mean, I never throw anything out, but I'm just like, how does this fit into? But now, it just seems to be such a thing. And how is that film going, by the way, that you're doing?
Good.
Oh, good.
I will say the only thing that derailed us was COVID.
Oh, gee. That derailed us a lot.
And there are a lot of interviews with people in Elkhorn City that are part of the family, and some of the people he met that once COVID hit, we couldn't do those things, But we're planning on releasing it next year, so I think it'll be great.
Oh, good. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
He's excited, and we've done a lot, on it. So
yeah, he's a really interesting guy. Yeah, I friended him on Facebook. I'm like, well, who knows? I think he's so neat. I listened to his episode like twice. I'm like, oh gosh, maybe
he's great. And Dan's one of those like someone who lives art, lives magic.
Yeah.
And he probably wouldn't even call it magic. You know,
Mhm.
it's just all art to him.
It just is. He doesn't feel like some sort of separation. It's just part of
Mhm.
his creativity. It's just interwoven. He had one of the stories. I mean, I know we're kind of going over time a little bit, but there was well, that whole thing with Oakwood a little bit, where like I don't know if he can. There was one part where Dan saw people crawling around eating popcorn. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, but that's one of the weirdest
Dude.
mental images I've.
Well, you know, that was another one of those things where he and I were
Oh, and I
working.
found a little.
We were working at his house,
Mhm.
and I was talking about the fact that I
Here.
found this research about the Oakwood king, and
Oh
I was,
yeah.
you know, and Pan as the Oakwood king, and was talking about the correlations between that and how we might work that into the Fawn film. And I said, you know, it's strange that Oakwood, and you've got Oakwood, this mental health facility here
Oh
in town.
yeah, here, bring it. Yeah, which had some weird stuff going on.
Yeah,
Okay.
God.
Like
Yeah.
about witch stuff, and I did a little bit of. I was like, okay, it's easy to fall down a rabbit hole on that.
Oh my God. And that's the thing about Pennyroll is like a lot of the things could have been made into entire podcasts by themselves.
Exactly. I think yes. Mm-hmm.
But the Oakwood thing, you know, I'd interviewed a lot of people that were talking about the fact that you know, Oakwood was this experimental mental health facility that opened in 1973 here, which again was a weird thing. Like, what, an experimental mental health facility? You know,
Why here? Yeah.
why
Uh-huh.
here? And there's a lot of weird details to it, but it opened here. Within 6 weeks of it opening, there were allegations of an anonymous
here it
letter
is.
was sent.
Yeah, yeah. This one.
Yeah, and there were allegations that there
Witchcraft
was
followers and
yes,
stuff. that
yeah,
they
there was
were-
a witch cult.
yeah,
They were doing
witchcraft
seances in the
cult and-
tunnels. Yeah,
Mhm. Tunnels again. Once again, tunnels.
yeah,
Like, why are there tunnels?
right, right. And they were burning symbols into the backs of the patients there.
Ugh, it's like Project Ultra.
Weird stuff, you know. Yeah, it was very like MK Ultra stuff, you know.
Mhm.
And so that was in '73. Well, when I brought up Oakwood, Dan said, you know, I have an Oakwood story for you, and
Just a little one.
just a little one, yeah. That someone had wanted him to paint with. There were, I think, there are 24 cottages, 12 or 24 cottages of residents, and so it wasn't like a normal sanitarium where everyone's in one building. They had separate cottages, and most of the cottages, all but one, were lower functioning
Yeah.
individuals. But one of them was for savants, and which is weird, you know. And so these high functioning, ultra intelligent people,
Total stranger things.
Stranger Things kind of thing, weird vibe, you know. And he said that, you know, he told me this story, but outside of this, I had already interviewed people without telling him that had said to me, there was this cottage of these people there, right?
With the savants. Okay, so we got the savants somewhere.
Yeah. So he tells me that, and as he's telling it to me too, I'm starting to get like, holy shit.
Yeah. Uh-oh, this is here standing up.
And so he says that, you know, he was asked to paint with these people. He didn't want to. He just didn't. He just thought it sounded crazy because the person that wanted him to do the paintings with, or to paint with these particular individuals, said that they were inhabited by alien intelligences that were trying
he's
to
like,
help
okay,
humanity.
sure.
He was like, you guys have been doing too much acid. Right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's funny.
But there were 9 of them, which the weird thing too is then you start to draw correlations with the 9, and Puharich and Uri Geller, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But he goes, he finally acquiesces and says, I'll go. And they come and pick him up, take him over there. And so he like walks to see them. And as he gets to their cottage, he sees all of these people on their hands and knees eating popcorn out of the grass. And he says,
I think I would dream. It's so weird.
Right. He says that's the last memory he had of that experience. And the next thing he remembers is 2.5 hours later, he's being driven back to his farm.
Wow.
But that day was the day that he had like all of the inspiration for a lot of the works that were to come. the secret
Yeah, it
Commonwealth.
really set the tone for his artistic life path.
Yeah,
This really surreal, weird thing. A little bit of missing time.
yeah.
Maybe a
He
cosmic
doesn't know
download.
what happened.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, when he told me that, I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then these other people have told me there are savants there. So we tracked it down that there was this group that was there until 1981.
Wow.
And after that, they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
I now know who the person was that was working with them, but I haven't approached them yet because
Oh,
there's some issues of anonymity, and I just don't,
yeah.
like Dan definitely didn't want, any of the, he was trying to preserve the identity of the person, but I figured it out though, who it is.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
okay.
but it's one of those weird things. You don't want to just go up to someone and be like, can you tell me about the savants that you thought
I know.
were inhabited by aliens?
That's a weird position to be in.
But what a weird twist to all this, like,
Maybe when you see him next, just have some popcorn with you and just throw it down and see.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, like what? No.
But the Oakwood thing was just another weird. All of the stuff that we found was like layer after layer of weirdness, and something I think that has to be mentioned, which really solidifies that this is a special place, is the fact that this is the center of what NASA refers to as the Kentucky anomaly, right? And so there is, in Pulaski County, right there on the Penny is the center of the largest spike of geomagnetic energy in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
And the second most powerful is in Sedona, and then there's one in southern Alaska. And there are papers on this, NASA papers.
I was looking through those and all, and my eyes were glazing over. But I was trying to find a good picture to share, and I was like, I will just let you talk about it.
Yeah. I've got one picture that really shows that Pulaski County is the center. And then, some after the show came out, some people that were fascinated by this contacted a scientist who had worked on this, and he sent them another map, which they sent to us, that shows two peaks of it, like the highest peaks are in Pulaski County. Yeah. And one of them is where the mine is located, where Guitarra's mine is located.
So Mount Victory Mine is one of them.
Peaks.
Wow.
And that's where we found out that all of these magical groups were coming from Cincinnati to perform magical rituals in that area. Hellier, the cave that they went into, is in that area. It's like half a mile from the mine that we found.
And isn't there some Welsh group that?
Yeah, so in Hellier, they talk about a green man cult. They received those weird emails from a woman, right? And so Greg shared some of that information with us, and they keep talking about the Green Man, and the heart of the Green Man is in the Big South Fork, which is here. And so I thought, well, that's crazy. I've never heard anything about that. Then I find, while we're researching this, that there was a Green Man cult called the Guidonic Order, and it's a group of Welsh magicians that were founded in in the 1950s, and they moved their international headquarters to Somerset, Kentucky in 2004, right? And you can read it on their website, and I'm like, so here's a person talking about a green man cult, and here is a group that worships Sunernos, the horn god.
Yeah.
Pan, this whole green man thing.
There's a green man if people want to see. Yeah, I think that is really something. If you can
what are the odds of that? What are the odds?
He's got the Oakleys. I love this picture because the Oakwood King or whatever the Yeah. Yeah, I know those correlations are just crazy. That is really, really something.
But that's the thing I was saying is, to think that, there's the Kentucky anomaly here. Then we find, have all the stories of the cults. Then you have all the Pan stuff and the Hellier stuff. Then you have Guitarra. Then you have the Oakwood stuff. And then now for the second season, we found all this other stuff. It's like this weird layering of really strange stuff. It's like, why is it here? Is it the Kentucky anomaly? Is that drawing things here, or in some weird way, are in the telling of this story, are we affecting it in a weird retro?
Yeah, going back and going forwards, and the correlations there. How much of it is you creating this weird retrocausal loop or something?
I mean, you have to ask those questions too. I mean, that's what's so strange about it. It's like, how do you wrap your mind around it? You know, because some of these things would have had to have been set in motion years ago.
Yeah.
And also, they seem so personal to the actions that we're taking right now. And I don't know. I mean, it's weird to think about these things that way, you know?
Yeah. I'm just looking to see if anyone, I want to tell people that if they have questions for you, they need to ask them now. So I always tell everyone that I'll go down here, that time flies. Because I knew it would. I knew there'd be more than we could really get into. But everybody, time flies. So if you got questions for Nathan, we're going to be wrapping up. So make sure you get them in there. I know y'all need time to type. Sometimes I when I first started this show, I would not give people enough time, and then I'd end the show, and then the questions would come in, and I feel bad. And I'd be like, okay, let's see here. All right, everybody. So I asked some questions. Here we go. Great show. Oh, thanks, Ken, up in Colorado. Yeah, and you should really check out the Penny Royal podcast, everybody. I want to give Nathan a chance to tell us more what he's working on. When will the next season come out? All that stuff. So go ahead and let us know.
Yeah,
I'm really waiting it.
So I've done most of the interviews for the second season. It centers on the motif of the secret occult history of the U.S. transportation system.
Oh.
And how that ties into... I
didn't know those were...
right.
I knew they both existed, but I anyway, I didn't know that was interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so that is the motif around which the second season is built.
Yeah.
And again, it has been really difficult to package all the stuff that we found in a way that hopefully people will, you don't want to hit people with just a massive amount of information.
I see that would be a real problem, a delicate balance between, because you're so excited about it all. It would be hard not to just overwhelm.
I have a really fantastic editor who helps with the soundtrack too and everything.
Oh, that's good.
And so he, the episodes would probably be 3 hours long if I did it myself.
Yeah.
But he cuts it down. He says, listen, leave that for the, extended episodes, for Patreon, whatever. This is the story you got to hug.
That's good. He's got that outside eye, and then I'm glad.
Because he doesn't know the story, right? And so I'm just like, here you go, package it. So anyway, but there's so much. You're going to be blown away if you loved the first season. Like the second season is so much weirder. Yay! There's so much strange stuff that's involved that we couldn't fit in the first season that's in the second season, and stuff that I've been finding. So my original release date was going to be around the end of September, but probably December because I've gotten all these new documents. I want to put everything in there. And
it's not like the discoveries quit coming in. So then you're suddenly like, how can I fit this in? How can I fit this in?
Yeah. So, and some really, really fantastic stuff we just found 6 weeks ago. Right.
Oh, wow.
And then that too only happened because of us creating the Patreon, the Liminal Lodge, which is, I encourage people, if you're interested in the mystery, you want to help us kind of dig deeper into it.
And I like this. You've even got merch, some cool merch. I like that Hive of Strangeness. I was looking at that. That's really neat. I found the Liminal Lodge. I haven't dug in too much yet because I've been a little bit busy. But Wade, Wade's asking about Hellier. That's a separate project. There was just a lot of synchronicities between the two. So that's Nathan's project is audio. It's podcast, but Hellier's
it's Greg and Dana Newkirk and Carl Five, for those guys did that. They were lucky enough.
They go well together. They pair well together.
And they were so sweet to us, and they really have really encouraged us and promoted us, which has been fantastic. So I don't think we would have reached as many people if Greg and Dana hadn't been so gracious and to help. And they let me speak at the Phenomenacon they had.
Nice.
And so, but they've been fantastic. Definitely, people should check out Hellier. It's their project. It's it's great.
Yeah, and I've got links to that in the show notes. I got links to the Pennyroyal. I got links to Project Archivist. I mean, there's a lot in here because I'm going to be traveling the next couple weeks, everybody. So dig in if you miss me at all. But there's really good stuff. It's all really good stuff. You guys will like it.
If you're out traveling, you should come through Somerset sometime.
Oh yeah, I would love to.
Museum,
because my good buddy actually, who I met on Twitter, like over 10 years ago, he lives in Lexington, and he's come down and visited me because we really like quirky travel stuff. So and he likes places with weird names. He has a whole book out about it and stuff. And so he has come through here a couple times, and I do a lot of cemetery stuff, and he sends me really gorgeous, there's some gorgeous cemeteries. So I will come up and I'll be like, hey, I'll come to the Paranormal Museum, and
we'll show you all the we'll take you out to the mine.
Oh yeah, I want to see jarfly brood because I have a thing about cicadas too, and I didn't know because I moved from up north, and we don't have like noisy trees, So to me, I'm like always out there identifying the different species, but like listening to them and recording them and stuff. I mean, everyone who lives here is like, girl, what's your problem with this? But I think they are so neat, and I didn't know that they were related to Pan somehow. What is that all about?
Right. So think about that too, right? My studio, which is a recording studio for music and video, is located above Jarfly Brewing. Well, the Jarfly it's another name for a cicada. And the symbol of the cult of Pan was a cicada.
I did not know. Yeah.
Right. So here we are making this podcast, which heavily involves Pan above a place that's named after people that were
because of course you are. Yeah. Everything is so
weird.
I know. I love it. There's so many synchronicities. I just found it. If people thought Hellier was synchronicity rich, I really think the Pennyroyal is just people have just got to listen to it. They will love it. So
thank you. I'm so glad that you liked it.
Oh yeah, total fan here. Zombie cicadas? I don't know. That's a scary thought. We do get cicada killer wasps, and I guess they do kind of create. They're these huge wasps. I don't know. They look like they're this big to me, but they're probably maybe this big. Yeah. They're scary looking. They're big. They fly around about 18 inches off the ground. I've seen grown men scream and run. They don't bother people at all. I finally, after 5 years, took me a while to realize they just kill cicadas, and I think they turn them into zombies. That was my very long-winded way of saying that. So. So yes. Oh, here people have learned something. Well, I hope so. And you got to listen to that whole show. Like I said, links are down. Check out the show notes because there's lots of different ways you can check out this Pennyroyal podcast. Go there first, get hooked, then join the Liminal Lodge. I want some of that high strangeness, get high on strangeness merch. I think that cracks me up. And yes, and I will definitely be letting you know if I get to go up through Kentucky. I'll be telling you. Or if you ever come down here, I can show you like some goat man stuff. We have a Lake Worth monster, which was part goat, not that far from me. There's like the goat man, a Cleburne. There's so many goat stuff around. Yeah, it's so weird. I'm really going to be looking into it more. It is so strange.
I definitely want to do some traveling and see some things. We're almost finished with the second season, but the third season, we're going to do some traveling overseas too, to England. Good. So I've already got that planned out, but yeah, I want to travel through a little bit more in the U.S. too, and tie some of these strings together that we found. That seem to just spiral out.
I know. Maybe if I'll have a little file. I'll try to some things I can share with you. Well, alrighty. I've kept you quite a while, and I super duper appreciate you being on the show. Yay. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on the show. I mean, this has been great. Sorry it took me a second to get the audio.
Oh, that's all right. Everyone knows that, I was just vamping over here, talking on and on about the Marphalites and whatever else. So,
but this has been fantastic. And I definitely also want to talk to you, though, after, not necessarily this evening, but about some Pan stuff.
Good. I would love that. I would love that. Yes, let's.
So if you have time, I would love to interview you about some of this.
Wow. I know. I need to dig back through. I kept pretty detailed journals when I had some experiences with Pan, and I had a weird accidental. I think I accidentally did a shamanic journey thing where I had like, I was like, what just happened last year? I had So, anyway, I will tell you about it. It was really weird. I was telling my stepdaughter, I mean, because she's known me a long time, like I wouldn't tell anybody else. I mean, most people think I was going crazy, but maybe there is something to all these goats and satyrs around here, because I think
I will say
encountered
this,
one.
you know, when you start talking about all this stuff, it's like, you know, people are like, what are you talking
I know. There's like, that's one reason I do this show, is I know these people I can talk to, but like most people I'm at a barbecue with, I'm not going to just go down that route unless they bring it up.
Do you know who Pan is?
Yeah, by the way. Yeah, exactly. No, not really going to go there. So anyway, well, all right.
But thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you very much. This was great. And thanks to everybody. Like I said, check out the show notes. There's lots of goodies down there to keep everybody busy. So bye all. I'm going to say ciao, ciao for now.